Hey guys, in this episode of Showstoppers, I spoke with Jillian Mcnulty, Content Marketing Manager at Terminus, about their latest new show called The Roof. And basically, I wanted to talk to them because they had such an incredible story of how they managed to come up with the concept for the show. And then from there, how they actually managed to get initial traction and success. So I can't wait for you guys to jump into this episode and let us know what you think coming up. Hey, Jillian, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kareem, thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. So, yeah, for people who may not know you from before, do you want to give us a quick, background about yourself?
Yeah, most definitely. So, my name is Jillian Mcnulty. I am a content marketing manager at Terminus, which is a B2B SaaS company. We provide an ABM platform for B2B marketers and sales teams to more align themselves to one another and use data to make sure that they are reaching out to the right prospects at the right time. So I sit on the brand team there, and I do a lot of our like really fun kind of like video strategy, social media strategy, bigger interactive pieces of content. And that's kind of my home space. I love content marketing. I love doing things that are outside of the box and creative. And I've got a background in video, so that's kind of why I'm here today with you, Kareem.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, and that's definitely something that I absolutely loved hearing about, like just your background in video. Um, you know, I suppose like both like academically, but also like just professionally as well. Like you used to work in Lumavate prior to Terminus, and you were doing some really cool episodic content over there. Do you want to tell us a bit about that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So Lumavate is another B2B SaaS company that is here in Indianapolis where I'm based. And that was actually my first job out of school. And I kind of like Kareem, you were saying before, like I have a background in broadcast journalism. That's what I studied in my undergrad. So I came out of school with all of this like video knowledge and editing and camera knowledge that I was very determined to work into my corporate career. And so at Lumavate, I ended up our whole team pitched this series that we ended up creating called Whiteboard Wednesdays, which was a like 30 to 90 second explainer video that we would put out every week. And it was mainly for our social channels. And it was really cute. It was animated. It was explaining some of the like deeper and more nuanced things in mobile marketing that people might not know, like how to get a short code for SMS or what 5G really means. And so we would break down these really kind of like aggressive, like in the weeds topics in these really
Right.
cute little animated videos. And it ended up being like, it was a series that we did for about a year and a half, weekly, new episodes every Wednesday. And it was like, I think it was our biggest brand builder. Like Lumavate was a very, very small startup at the time that I was there. And we had a podcast running simultaneously. And every time our VP of marketing, who was the host of the podcast, would get on with sometimes like very, very big brands, they would go, "Oh, Lumavate, you guys are the ones that do the Whiteboard Wednesdays." So it was really cool to see that like we got a lot of brand power just from kind of like sticking to this serialized video series that we ended up doing.
Yeah, and I remember something you were telling me earlier around how like sometimes people may not know the brand, but they're like, "Oh my God, I do know your content though," and that's how they kind of come across the brand in that regard. So in a way, like the show was actually yeah, like it seems like it was definitely like a prominent brand builder for Lumavate.
Totally. And as a content marketer, that's like the highest compliment I could possibly receive is like,
Right.
"Oh, I don't, it's sad when they go, I don't know your brand," but then like following it up with, "Oh my gosh, but I saw this content." You're like, okay, then we're doing something right, but maybe we should like slide our brand in there a little more so you associate us with it.
Right, right, and obviously, like bringing it to to Terminus now. You obviously had like all this amazing experience, all these like success stories, like going in, and in the space of a couple of months, like you guys launched the Roof, which definitely caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to reach out just to learn a bit more about like yeah, the story about behind it and how it all came to fruition. If you can take us there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I joined the Terminus team, first of all, this was like maybe 4 months ago at this point. So we were still deep in the throes of the COVID pandemic world that we live in. We were all working from home at the time. But a big reason that I joined the team was because they knew that I had a video background, and they said, we really want to bump up our video strategy because Terminus as a company was doing incredibly well. They were putting out some, cool, like traditional B2B content. But basically they brought me on because they wanted someone who was going to take a really creative approach to creating this top of the funnel brand content that would get people's attention. So, it was really cool to like join an organization with that goal. I remember in one of my interviews, my now boss literally said like, we don't want you doing any of the like blog and SEO stuff. Like you're not allowed to do that. We only want you to be doing the really creative content. And I was like, is this a dream? Like where am I right now? This is awesome. Which is amazing because I know like I have a coworker too who handles all of our blog and SEO and more of the content strategy, and that is his dream. So that's been great that we both like get our own things. But anyway, so pretty much within like, no joke, Kareem, probably like a week of joining Terminus, I pitched this video series. It was definitely a team effort, but I kind of said like, well, what if we just do this like vlog style, real talk kind of marketers get up and get on this camera and rant for, less than 2 minutes about a topic that they're passionate about or something they've done that was kind of a messy story that they ended up getting a really good lesson about. There was this common theme among like our team meetings about us saying like, well, we're kind of tired of, hearing all the time that like marketers are trying to hack their strategies and make it easy, when in reality, like marketers have a hard job and they have a lot on their plates and a lot they need to do. So we wanted to kind of be the thought leader behind like, marketing is hard, but it's okay. And we can be real with each other and share these stories and also like help each other learn lessons by sharing these stories that we have gone through and these lessons that we've learned ourselves. So that's how the idea of the roof was born. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe this is something that will get momentum on and be able to, put one out every 2 months. I think that's what I pitched at the beginning because I was like, I've only been here for a couple weeks. Let's start slow. Let's not like try to put the cart before the horse. Let's make sure it's successful before we jump right into it. So I always knew it was going to be a series, but in my mind, I was thinking, let's take it slow and we'll ramp up. Well, we got very lucky that we had a ton of internal buy-in in this. Our CEO is a former CMO and he loved this idea. He's been on the roof many, many times and there's more to come with him. His name's Tim Kopp. He's amazing. But so we got all this internal buy-in, and essentially before we even launched, we were starting to batch out all these videos, and my boss and I looked at each other and we said, we have enough film to go weekly for at least the rest of the year and into 2021. So it was really cool to have like this internal buy-in and kind of like, we didn't even have to test the waters because they knew that it was going to be something cool. Like it was kind of this magical moment of like, oh, no one else is doing this right now in our space. So let's like go full bore and dive in. And we've got all this great content and we might as well just push it out there and then like see how it does as it goes. But that's no reason to start slow. Which was a really cool experience. So we've been launching weekly videos ever since we launched about, I think, a month ago. And it's proven to be something that is like causing a lot of conversation on social. We've got a lot of people that say like, this is something I've never seen before from a B2B company. This is really real. This is awesome. So it's been such a cool project to start my career at Terminus on. And I am so excited to like see where we take it in the next couple of months.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, you touched on something that's super important that I imagine like a lot of our viewers would probably have questions around, which is this notion of, getting buy-in, right? So it seems that it was pretty much like very smooth sailing, like from day one or week one, pretty much. I wonder though, like if, do you know what I mean? Like, was there any conversation around, like what's the ROI of that? To your point, right? It's by definition something that's never been done before. Did you need to do anything around communicating, right, benefits or ROI or something like that to be able to get this off the ground?
I honestly, Kareem, and I know that this is the luckiest thing in the world, and I never take it for granted. I didn't have to do that, and that's because we have a CEO at our company that his like main point that he loves to rant about and drive home is the fact that brand drives demand. Like he already recorded a roof episode about that concept. So he knows the importance of putting out content that will boost your brand and get your brand in front of people, because that is what ultimately drives revenue and demand in the end. It's like we are doing a full account-based marketing way of doing marketing, which means just reaching out to the right people at the right time and making sure that their propensity to buy is there, and also they're a good fit for your company and you're a good fit for their needs. And it's a whole slew of things, but that's the way that we sell. And the whole beginning of that process of selling with ABM is through brand awareness and basically just being a helpful brand to these people who you want on your customer list, and saying like, hey, we understand your pain points. Here we are. Here's a couple pieces of content that will help you. And that was the whole point of the roof, is that we said we want to do something cool that is going to be helpful and kind of never been done before, a little bit selfishly. But so I honestly didn't even need to justify, because we have a CEO who luckily has been a CMO at companies and knows the importance of brand. But I will say, like, to give you probably a more typical answer, at Lumavate, I remember absolutely having to prove out that value to our CEO. And we had a lot of people at Lumavate who kind of like didn't understand how marketing and sales even aligned with one another. And I mean, by the time I had left the company, like they were in lockstep. It was incredible to see how like the understanding between brand and demand was there. But in the beginning, I mean, we had a lot of like higher up people at the company being like, I don't even know why we really need like social media, or I don't really know why we even need this kind of stuff. So it was definitely an uphill battle there, but it was cool to see the journey of like Whiteboard Wednesday growing so much and us getting so much attention on our social channels from that. And then in prospect meetings, prospects going, oh, I've seen your Whiteboard Wednesday videos. I think I remember like our CEO sitting in on a call where a prospect said that, and that's where he was like, we have to keep doing this stuff. So it's like, those are the moments where you're like, yes, clearly this drives demand. You don't need to like obsess over video views and engagement and when they drop off in the video. Those are important metrics, and they're ones that I keep an eye on personally. But I'm very lucky to be on a team now that realizes like, that's not what you need to obsess over. It's more about getting your brand in front of people and doing it in a consistent and helpful way.
100%. And you touched on a bunch of important things there, which we will definitely revisit later on, around how things blow up on social and how, you know, from a distribution standpoint. So I'm saving that for last. Talk to me about like how you guys approach production, especially during like COVID and stuff like that. How did you guys now that okay, you know, everyone's bought in, we even have a concept ready to go. When it comes to actually producing the show, how did you guys go about that? What was going on through your mind?
So it was a lot in a very short amount of time, but a couple of factors were in play. Number one was the fact that obviously logistically we are in the middle of a global pandemic. So that's actually a big reason why like the roof concept came about, is we were like, well, we need a way to go and film people and do it in a way that's safe and socially distant, and in a way that quite honestly, HR is not going to yell at us for. So we were lucky enough to have a rooftop at our office here in Indianapolis. And so we said, let's do it there. It's outside. We're able to be distanced. That's great. So that's kind of how the concept came about. And we ran with it from there because it made a lot of sense. Because we're like, oh, this is us sharing some of these kind of like higher thought things and trying to be, you know, like not be above other people, but like try to be the first to this thing. And it's a cool backdrop, and just logistically, like it worked out for us. So that was definitely a part of it. Second of all was because we are in COVID times, and so much video right now that companies are pumping out is pretty much just like spliced together Zoom videos, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with, but we knew we wanted to kind of go back to a more traditionally produced video, something that looked a little bit cleaner, because we knew that would stand out right now. So luckily I was able to kind of dust off my old, camera skills from my undergrad. And
Oh snap.
I know, can you believe it? So we got our little gimbal for our second camera that we were using.
Nice.
But it was honestly, it was pretty scrappy. Like we've just been using a DSLR and then one of our iPhones as our second camera.
Nice.
And so we shoot it ourselves. And that's kind of by necessity at this point. And we totally have said that in the future, we love the clean look of like a fully produced and edited video, especially coupling that with a more informal, unscripted, like feel. We just think that's a cool kind of combo and juxtaposition. So I could totally see it in the future going with more of like having an agency come and help us film. But that was another logistical thing, was that our video agency that we actually use is out in Atlanta because that's where Terminus is headquartered. So in a perfect world, we might have gone down there and batch filmed a bunch of these. But there also has been this kind of magic about like people who we wouldn't typically have thought wanted to like get on camera and rant about something have reached out to me and said, hey, do you mind, like, can you meet me at the office and can we get on the roof and shoot something? And I'm like, please, that's amazing. It's great to have a more diverse set of voices on this. So logistically, this is a very long-winded answer for this. Sorry, Kareem, but we...
No, I love it, yeah.
We film ourselves on our roof here in Indy, and then we ship this off. We ship all of our footage and our audio recorded separately off to our agency in Atlanta, and they're incredible. They've been with the Terminus brand for about 4 years, like since the beginning of the company. So they know the brand and the feel inside and out. And we got incredibly lucky that I gel super well with that team, and we were able to have a couple brainstorming sessions where we were totally on the same page about like, oh, we want this to feel kind of like a cool, like hip YouTube vlog. So we want to have cool kind of like lo-fi hip hop music in the background. We want to do cool things with the intro. And our one of our consultants over there, Landon, was like, I follow this vlogger on YouTube who does these cool like drone shots at the beginning of his video. So that's how the roof like drone shots kind of came in, because we were drawing inspiration from that. So it was super collaborative, and it was incredible to be able to pass that over to a team who like really, I think, was the icing on the cake. They turned it into what it turned into essentially.
I love it. And yeah, just like that drone shot was like super iconic, like in the beginning. And I think as well, like even when people see like your Wistia channels page, like I love the kind of like background kind of video that plays, which is that iconic drone shot. So it's super, super cool. Especially because this is something that you guys have done yourselves, right? Like it's not necessarily like pre-recorded video or something like that. Okay, and I suppose like to geek out a little bit on gear, you mentioned you guys used a DSLR and then like a secondary like iPhone and a gimbal. Can you talk to me about like your video and audio setup for the roof?
Yeah, so we just shoot with a Canon DSLR. I will be honest, I don't even know the model of it. We started shooting the roof so quickly that I just picked up what was in the office and said, let's run with it. And I don't know any of the specs, so I'm so sorry. But it's a Canon DSLR. And we just set that up on a tripod up there. And like I said, typically I'm lucky enough to have another teammate who's up there with me just kind of as a second shooter. So we've got a really cool gimbal for the iPhone. That's one that like, kind of stabilizes as you move. So we're able to get some of those cool like sweeping side shots that we can edit in, which I think kind of play into the cool like vibe of the rooftop shot and kind of playing into the drone footage. And then we just record audio with a lav mic, and it's a little tough with all the city noises and stuff, and it's a system that we're constantly perfecting. But like I said, we've done it kind of scrappily in the beginning, and as we see more success, like we're very excited to kind of keep upping our game as far as all of our equipment goes.
Nice. I love it. And by the way, like I'm just so passionate about this like get up and go approach, as opposed to like waiting for what many people regard as like perfect, which doesn't even exist, right? Like there's always going to be a thing that you could do that to like one up your quality, and I mean, ultimately, like specifically like from a business standpoint, as you guys probably have figured out, like once something resonates with an audience, it's always easier to go and iterate and make it better after some time. But if we were to obsess so much on just getting something that's absolutely spotless or perfect, or at least what we perceive is like inside the building, no pun intended, you know, like we may not, you know, we may spend so much time and effort and money on something that we don't even know will take off or not. So I definitely take my hat off to your guys' approach on like, hey, like let's just take this live, see how people react to it, and then from there we can always iterate forward. Like I remember one of the things that the very first show that we started as Tribe Tactics was called the Spare Room Talks. And I remember telling my wife like, hey, we have the spare room, can we just use it for our podcast? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, well, do you have any tips on how we can make it look corporate? Because we couldn't afford an office, like we were working from literally from that spare room. And I was like, how do we make it like, you know, corporate looking, like, you know, professional, like we're this huge company. And she's like, hey, well, why don't you just give it to the people straight? Like, call it what it is. And sure enough, we ended up calling the show the Spare Room Talks. And we were filming it, Jillian, on, you're going to laugh at me now, but we literally had like two different smartphones that don't even match. Like one of them was an iPhone and one of them was an Android. So depending on who was speaking, like one angle was always like better than the other one. And then we had like a GoPro and we had all the wrong settings on it. But people liked it, you know, and it definitely sent some good attention our way. And then we're like, right, now let's learn how to do this again, maybe a bit more properly this time. So yeah, I can definitely relate to the get up and go approach. Having said all that, I think you guys are like literally miles ahead. The fact that you even have like a proper camera and you have a proper location as well, you know, the roof of your building. So that's super cool.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I absolutely love, like, I'm right on with you that the scrappy approach is the way to go. And it's like, I constantly have to remind myself that video is something that I studied in school and it's something that I have a passion about. And odds are the little nuanced thing I noticed, like the two cameras, maybe they're like, you know, like white balance not matching up, is something that I will notice and maybe a dozen other people will notice when they watch it, but the majority of people will not notice. So
right.
I am very much a perfectionist in that kind of stuff, but it's a great reminder to be like, honestly, the content matters so much more than how it looks. And that's not to say that I don't think like the aesthetic and, you know, making sure that it's professionally done and the audio and video match and all that good stuff, that's super important. But my biggest rant that I get on with video is that if the content is bad, your video will not be good. Like you could shoot it in the most gorgeous way and have the most professional editing. And if at the end of the day, what the person or the voiceover or the message is saying like doesn't make sense or doesn't resonate, then it was all for nothing.
100%. That was beautiful, Jillian. If I knew you were gonna be dropping gold nuggets at this rate, I would have brought like an umbrella or something, just to like, just to like catch all that. But that is so true because, and if I could be honest, like sometimes it almost turns out a bit like sometimes it just makes you feel. You know, like, yeah, like it was like wasted effort or whatever. If like we focus so much on one thing when in fact we didn't pay any mind to the audience on the receiving end and what would be most valuable for them. And that value could come in the form of education, but also entertainment, or ideally both. So that's incredible. And I suppose like speaking on the back of that, one of the things that we always love to ask folks on Showstoppers is what happens after the episodes get released. Like, maybe talk to me a little bit about how you guys think of maybe distributing the content, repurposing it, making sure that as many people as possible see the content.
Yeah. So currently, since we're so early in the roof, we're still working on like how we're going to kind of repurpose and re-promote everything. But one thing that I have really enjoyed about our process and how we're doing this is that, and I think you mentioned it earlier, we're working with Wistia, which is a video hosting platform, and they're hosting all of our videos. And along with our partnership with Wistia, they allow us to like create a really cool landing page for the video that makes the serialized content like very bingeable. So when you go to the landing page, it's kind of like you were talking about earlier with the drone footage in the background, Kareem, like you can click on the first video in the series and then it'll autoplay the rest of them. So our thing is like, we want someone who maybe sees episode 7 on social media and that's the first time they see it, we want to make sure it's really easy for them to click through and get to this landing page where they can like binge through the rest of them if they want. So that's been something really unique, because it is kind of a struggle with a weekly series. I'll be honest with you. Like, I've always struggled going, okay, I don't want to beat people over the heads with this video series. Like, we're putting out a new episode every week, and as important as I know as it is to share and repurpose old episodes, I'm like, I don't want to be posting just about the roof every day on this brand's page, you know? So it's a tricky balance, and so I'm excited to see like how our landing page does this time around, and see if truly it is bingeable content, because that was our goal. Is we're like, we want this to be something that people will like sit and like not be able to stop watching because they're like, oh, what are they going to say next? Oh, what's this person going to say?
Right. No, I love it. And I mean, yeah, like the Wistia channels feature that they've built is absolutely incredible. Definitely gives you that like authentic kind of like Netflix feel, and you feel it instantly, right? Like as soon as you land on the Roof's landing page or channel page in that regard. And yeah, like you're absolutely right. Like one of the things that we've found is really important for people is that the episodes can, on the one hand, can hold their own each one by itself, so that you can get standalone value from it, but in the same time that it would nudge you, right, to go back perhaps and check out the other episodes, go back and perhaps watch them from the first episode onwards, similar to any good binge-worthy series in that regard. So yeah, that makes total sense. And I suppose like now that you guys have had this initial success with the roof, like what's next on the horizon? Like what are you guys thinking of doing next, or growing next from as far as that series is concerned?
We have a lot of big plans for it, and it's
Nice.
exciting to know that it's gotten such good reception on the front end. First of all, we really know that we want to like diversify our locations, which is exciting. So we have a couple of team members here at Terminus who live in really cool places, because we live in such a remote work culture now. We've actually gone on a bit of a hiring spree since COVID started. So we have, colleagues all over the country in really cool locations, and they've kind of come to us and said like, well, hey, what if I shoot from like the roof of my barn in Montana? Or what if I go to like when I'm skiing one day, what if I shoot one at the top of the mountain, and we can call it like the roof, like mountaintop edition. And we're like, absolutely. So this kind of stuff, we're just like, it's so cool to see an idea that we started with spark ideas that we actually like kind of unsolicited get from the rest of the company. So definitely switching up the locations, definitely trying to get more diverse voices on it as well. We're a company of over 200 people, and we have a lot of like brilliant and incredible people on the team who also, thank God, and I'm so lucky, enjoy being on camera and are good at being on camera. So I think the next chapter of The Roof definitely involves some new locations. It involves some new faces, and it's going to be a bit of a logistical, I'm not going to say nightmare because that's negative. It'll be a logistical challenge to figure out. Adventure, there you go. It's going to be a logistical adventure to figure out how we get them the right equipment and everything, but I'll keep you up to date. We'll see how The Roof Chapter 2, taking it to the different parts of the country, goes.
Yeah, and I just love first of all, I love like your team's openness to like obviously getting more people involved and letting the idea kind of organically grow. This notion of like different locations, different roofs. That is just super interesting, and I'm sure it'll be interesting for the viewers as well. Just to get, I forget the name now, but I think there's either a Chrome extension or a website where you could basically, you just keep hitting like refresh, and like you get to see into like someone else's window or something like that, like all around the world, like whatever, right? Like Paris, London, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it would definitely it would definitely be very aesthetically pleasing, to say the least. And how do you guys think about collaborating with like, have you guys thought about, for example, like working with people outside of your company as well in that regard, or is it something that you guys are still exploring at the moment?
Most definitely, it's something that I think we would really love to do, but it is complicated right now with like COVID. Just to be honest, like it's something that we knew that for the beginning of a series like this that we visualized it was going to do well and hoped it was going to do well, and luckily is doing well. We kind of wanted to have control over it for the first like season of it to make sure that, you know, we got the vibe right and we got the messaging right and we got the camera angles right and all of that before we send it off to other people. So I definitely think that's a step in the journey at some point. But I think, kind of like I was saying before, like, we're going to start with what we have here. We'll expand out to like further Terminus Nation people, and then we'll probably extend it outwards from there, because we have some incredible organizations that we're close with and we partner with. And I think it's super important from a marketing standpoint to make sure that you're not just like in your own little company echo chamber, and to get other voices involved. And we're very lucky to like have a lot of great relationships with thought leaders and other companies in the area and beyond. And I personally am very much looking forward to the day where we can, you know, start going back to conferences and, you know, host like some sort of like the roof happy hour where we'll get up on a roof and we'll have a camera going, and like anyone who wants to get up there, like we can film a little bit. And I think that would be a really fun concept. So that is the kind of stuff I'm looking forward to as soon as we can return to some semblance of normalcy in the world.
100%. No, I can completely appreciate that, and I love the idea of like, hey, like let's get the ball rolling internally first, because this is something that's within our control. And again, it gives us obviously control over, right, like the vibe, the general creative direction. And if anything, I'm just thinking out loud with you, but if anything, you know, when people come onto the show, they already know all about it. They already know what to expect, what you know, what the audience is looking for, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's awesome, Jillian. I guess in closing, given your experience literally across at least 2 different companies creating shows, do you have any advice or tips for budding show creators out there, marketers turned show creators?
Just do it. I think, like you said, Kareem, it's like you can overthink it all day long and think like, oh, well, we need X, Y, and Z before we get started. We need a better camera. We need someone who's better on camera. We need a teleprompter. We need someone to write script, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just do it with what you have. And the coolest part about, even if you think about like your favorite shows on TV, odds are like some of the later seasons might be your favorite because there's so much to grow into. And I think it's really endearing when you see something starting out and it's a little bit scrappier, and then to see the journey of it getting better along the way is so much more relatable and so much more human. And so my biggest advice is just like get over the hump and do it. Whether it means you're recording, like you said, like in a spare room in your house on 2 smartphones with just the audio that you have, or you've got a whole production crew. Like, I think it's something that you just have to dive in and do. And if you need to figure out like how to get buy-in, you know, for a budget or whatever, do it without a budget. And then show that it'll get an audience, and that'll be how you can prove that, you know, the brand drives the demand and you don't necessarily need a $10,000 setup to get into videos and get into making really cool serialized content.
Yeah, I love that so much. I wish that was like on a t-shirt somewhere, because like, you know, like, yeah, I completely agree with that so much. And I mean, just to go to the last thing you said, which was super important, is this notion of like doing it grassroots, right? And just using, like James Altucher, the famous author, says, you know, don't wait to get picked, like pick yourself, you know what I mean? And who knows, like it could even be like an amazing way to even start building your own personal brand within the company, within your industry, so on and so forth. And to your point, like it is something that could definitely turn heads in your favor, to actually have that become like an entire like company initiative. So yeah.
And if you can't get buy-in too, like I think that's a great point, Kareem. Do it yourself and do it for your personal brand. Like get on your LinkedIn and start creating a little bit of like serialized content, and then see how your like audit your own content on your personal feed, and then present that to the people at the company who need to buy in. You can be like, hey, I did this on my own, and here's all the, you know, all the different like engagements that I had with this, and imagine if we did this with our brand. I think that's an awesome way to do it, just because there are always going to be roadblocks in a company. It always happens, especially in marketing, because sometimes there are things in marketing that you do that can't necessarily be tied to an immediate number in ROI, which I know is tough for some higher ups if they're more numbers driven. But that should never stop you from doing it on your own. And if you can do it on your own successfully, I think it would be a much harder thing to say no to.
100%. Jillian, thank you so much for your time. We could be here forever with your insights. And I really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully our viewers got a lot from this. Last but not least, where can people find the roof and everything that you guys are up to in that regard?
You can find the roof at terminus.com. And then if you click on the resources tab, there's a little tab under there that says the roof. Or follow us on social media. We are Terminus pretty much everywhere on LinkedIn and Twitter. And we post new episodes every Wednesday. And we are super, super excited to have it continue to grow. And we would love for everyone to follow along and see where we go. See if we get a new camera eventually. Who knows?
For sure. Awesome. Jillian, thank you so much again for your time. And we'll catch you soon.
Thanks, Kareem.
See you later.